For those of you who know me, you know I love to give sermons. So here I am one more time at the pulpit, addressing this sweet congregation I love. At our fundraising auction last fall, I offered to give a sermon on any topic. Beth and Gary bid and won, and chose the topic: the history of the LGBT, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender struggle. So thank you very much, Beth and Gary, for giving us the theme for today. I hope to do it justice. Here we go. When I thought about history, looking back in time, I figured we might as well look way back. How's 12,000 years? Beginning about 10,000 BC, mankind started to make artifacts which suggested already an appreciation of homosexual eroticism way back then. Some examples, like graffiti, can be seen in cave drawings and later on in buildings and statues. As we speed forward through the ages, we can see that after 2000 BC, homosexuality and bisexuality were common and accepted in Egypt, Greece, and later in the Roman Empire, without apparent judgment or conflict. In 600 BC, Sappho of Lesbos wrote her famous love poems to young women, providing the eventual inspiration for the word lesbian. So thank you, Sappho of Lesbos, for that contribution and your wonderful poems. In 326 BC, the military leader Alexander the Great, who seems to have been at least bisexual if not homosexual, completes the conquest of most of the then-known Western world, launching the Hellenistic age, in which millions of people are converted to the Hellenistic culture that viewed homosexual relationships quite positively. We can see that in many writings. Around 42 BC, Virgil's writings include many references to homosexual love and relationships. Soon after, 27 BC, the Roman Empire began with the reign of Augustus. The first recorded same-sex marriages occurred during that period. Several Roman emperors over the next few years were openly gay and had gay marriages. From Nero in 54 AD to the beloved Emperor Trajan in 98 AD to Elagabalus in 218 AD. He married a man in a lavish public ceremony in Rome amid the rejoicings of the public. In the 4th century, though, things began to change. The Roman Empire had turned Christian. Councils met and started to declare various homosexual acts as illegal, and by 342, same-sex marriage was already outlawed. By the end of the century, homosexual behavior was declared illegal and punishable. It got worse over the next many centuries. By 1300 AD, homosexuality had radically passed from being completely legal and accepted in most European countries to incurring the death penalty in most of Europe. Not until the mid-19th century was there any relief in the ongoing persecution and prosecution of homosexuals. In 1852, Portugal was the first to decriminalize homosexual acts. Then, 1858, the Ottoman Empire, now Turkey, followed suit. In 1861, England at least removed the death penalty for homosexual acts, though still illegal. America was affected by this movement as well. In 1870, a novel, Joseph and His Friend, The Story of Pennsylvania, was published, possibly the first American novel about a homosexual relationship. But this was not an easy road. Over the next decades, many countries went back and forth, decriminalizing and then recriminalizing homosexual behavior. In 1871, homosexuality was criminalized throughout the German Empire. That law stayed on the books for the next almost 100 years till 1968. When we think of Germany and the Third Reich and its concentration camps, we usually think of Jews, justly so. In addition to that, between 50,000 and 100,000 gays were also incarcerated at that time. Many in prisons, and about 10,000 of them in concentration camps. Upon the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps by Allied forces in 1945, thank you, those interned for homosexuality unfortunately were not released, but stayed. They had to serve out their sentences. But change was in the air. Some hope was coming. In 1952, the American Christine Jorgensen became the first widely publicized person to undergo sex reassignment surgery, creating a worldwide sensation. In 1970, finally, the movement for gay and lesbian rights took on new momentum. The first Gay Liberation Day march was held in New York City, and marches in Los Angeles and San Francisco soon followed. Throughout the decade, major milestones were accomplished. In '72, Hawaii legalized homosexuality. Then, East Lansing, Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and San Francisco became the first cities in the United States to pass a homosexual rights ordinance. And by 1977, Tucson, Arizona, joined them with their own anti-discrimination policy. I'm glad we're on the record books. The American Psychiatric Association then finally removes homosexuality from its diagnostic manual of mental disorders. That same year, Harvey Milk is elected to supervisor in San Francisco, becoming only the third openly gay American elected to public office. Soon after, Dade County, Florida, enacts an amazing human rights ordinance, only to have it repealed later that same year after a militant anti-homosexual rights campaign led by Anita Bryant. And with that, the battle was suddenly on. Anti-gay propaganda started spreading. Killer Queer for Christ bumper stickers were displayed proudly. Rumors were spread and believed that gay people recruit children and are likely to molest them. By the way, researchers, that is not the case. Most child molesters are straight men. Much of the misinformation of this time continues to be spread and believed to this day. This did not stop the gay rights movement, though. International progress continued to be made. Many countries legalized homosexuality. The rainbow flag became the international symbol for gay rights, based on the idea that it takes all kinds of colors to make a rainbow, and it takes all kinds of people to make a world. While international progress continues, so does violent opposition in America. In 1978, Supervisor Harvey Milk and Mayor George Moscone were assassinated in San Francisco by former Supervisor Dan White. Dan White then received a very mild sentence and was only convicted of manslaughter, which triggered the White Night riots. Violence between gay activists and police continued until Dianne Feinstein was elected mayor and appointed a gay-friendly chief of police. But raids on gay bars, violent clashes with police, and rioting occurred in major cities all over the United States. New York got the worst brunt of that one. In the 1980s, just when the Democratic Party endorsed a homosexual rights platform, and several gay and lesbian politicians were elected or came out, and the Human Rights Campaign is founded, the supposed moral majority started an anti-homosexual crusade. The spread of AIDS at that time made it worse and gave them a lot of ammunition. AIDS was initially known as gay-related immune deficiency, or gay cancer, or gay compromise syndrome. Jerry Falwell called AIDS the gay plague. In the 1990s, internationally, there continued to be the drive to decriminalize homosexuality and secure rights for homosexuals. Civil unions, domestic partnerships, and/or marriage rights were then granted in Norway, Iceland, Sweden, Israel, France, Germany, and Hungary, to name a few. During that time in the 90s, we faced sad news in America. Brandon Tina, and Rita Hester were brutally murdered for being transsexual. Matthew Shepard was tortured and murdered for being gay. And the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, was passed in 1996, claiming that straight marriage needed defending. The law prohibits any gay marriage from any state of the union to be recognized by any other state.